I think high risk because I had the gestational diabetes plus the other hypertension and hypothyroidism. It was a combination, right?
How did the birth go, like the birthing journey?
I said right away, like, can I get that epidural?
I get it, yeah.
Because I was like, already, at that point, I was already starting to feel like more in pain.
It's very important to prepare yourself for the thing that you're not expecting.
Something that I didn't know until like I spoke to another mom like for the postpartum, and that's something that I haven't like shared broadly, but I'm sharing it because I just want like other moms to know that if you need it, it's okay.
Hi Denise, welcome to Momsibilities. I am so glad that you're here today, and let me tell you, I am so thankful to you for being open to come on the podcast, share your journey, because this is something that is very personal, and especially you're very vulnerable when you're in the thick of it. So kudos to you for coming and talking about it. I'm very sure that a lot of moms are going to benefit from whatever you have to talk about today and about the journey that you had so far, because this is something that you only understand and hear when you're in it. So there might be moms who are in this journey right now, or soon to be moms, who are looking for some answers and looking to resonate with somebody. So that's what we are going to talk about today. And I know we have a lot to share in terms of postpartum journey and whatever followed. But before that, I would love to hear about your pregnancy journey. And even before that, let us have an introduction from you for the listeners, just to know who Denise is.
Okay, thank you so much for having me, and I'm happy to be here. This is my first time on a podcast, and I'm happy to share my journey because, like you mentioned, even if it could help like any new moms or any moms in general, and it, hopefully makes any moms listening like feel like, less alone in whatever aspect, if it's something that they think maybe someone else hasn't gone through, but, everybody's experience is different. And so for an introduction, I'm Denise, and I have a 13-month-old son named Elio. And I'm an analyst for one of the top 5 banks in Canada.
He just went to daycare, right? I think you told me that you transitioned, and how was that?
It went really
month,
well.
right?
Yeah, so I went back. I had 12 months off maternity leave, and he started daycare like a couple days after I went back to work. And it went so I was really nervous about going back to work. Honestly, I was dreading it just in terms of leaving my son, and I've been with him for the past year, and my first day back, I had to go into the office downtown, and my husband dropped me off at the subway, and he was bringing my son over to my mother-in-law's. And I cried all the way going to work on the subway. And but once I was there, it was okay. And since I've been back, I've been pleasantly surprised, just of how much I actually enjoy going back to work, because it almost felt like I got a part of me back, almost like the career Denise.
Yeah.
So I was the mom Denise for a year, and majority of that year, that's the role I was in most, right? Yeah. And then going back to work now, I kind of have that career part of me back. And it feels
I'm
good.
So happy. Yeah,
Thank you.
So happy for you.
Thank you. And Elio is enjoying daycare, which is a huge relief, because obviously you hear some kids have a really hard time.
It's not an easy transition.
Exactly.
Yeah. So Denise, I know that we discussed that we will be talking about your challenges that you had with baby bonding and breastfeeding.
Yeah.
But then before that, let's talk about your pregnancy journey. How was it in the starting, in the middle of it, and everything that you want to share with the listeners?
Okay, sounds good. So in terms of my pregnancy, I didn't have that easy of a pregnancy. So for the first more than half of it, I had really severe morning sickness. I was just very sick all the time. So there was that. And then closer to, I don't know, let's say 25 weeks approximately, I was diagnosed with gestational diabetes. And so that was also a challenge, because I had to, obviously monitor my blood sugar. And closer to the end, I also had to take insulin, which like I don't want to say I was against it, but I was like, I had this thing in my head where I was kind of like, oh, you should be able to manage it diet alone. And like, if you can't, like it's like something I'm doing wrong.
Yeah.
But the thing is that it's like actually something to do with your placenta, and like,
Absolutely.
yeah, so it's not something that you can control. Like, I mean, yes, obviously you have to watch your diet, and some people are able to just do like diet controlled the whole time. But closer to the end, I had to also take insulin. And then also I had some other issues like hypertension and hypothyroidism.
That came along
During the pregnancy.
last trimester, was it?
I feel like about halfway through, but yeah, like.
And when you were mentioning about the gestational diabetes, was it something that they diagnosed when you got the test done, like everybody does?
Yeah.
Or you were having certain symptoms that they said like you have to do it?
Oh, no, I didn't have any symptoms, but I am more at risk because I have something called PCOS, and it's
okay.
polycystic ovarian syndrome. And basically, like, I am prone to insulin resistance because of that. And like
If I'm not wrong, please correct me if I'm wrong. Is when you have PCOS, is it something like you have less chances of conceiving too, and it takes time? Am I right?
So that was
How
something.
was that?
Yeah, so I was convinced that it would take me a long time to get pregnant, and that it would like I would, have to even maybe do IVF. Like I really, really thought that was going to be the case for us. But we were extremely lucky because, with the PCOS, I have a very irregular period. Like I get it maybe a period once every 3 months. So, and like usually women like with a normal cycle will ovulate once a month. But for me, I'm like, am I ovulating only once every 3 months, right?
Yeah.
And so what I did was I was reading like some things online, like, and I saw that about ovulation test strips. So I started testing with the ovulation test strips, and then like basically the first time it showed that it was like I was ovulating.
In the first time itself,
first
it showed?
time,
Oh, that's
yeah.
good. Because you mentioned it's like 1 in 3 months, right? Once in 3 months.
Yeah, like sorry, not the first time I did it, but like I was doing it for quite a few like days or
okay,
weeks,
okay.
and then the time that it said I like the test, had a higher level. Like we like conceived on that first try, basically.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's so good to hear. And I'm sure like so many of our mom listeners would be
Yeah.
happy because PCOS is like a common thing, and it's not like rare. I've been
Yes.
hearing a lot of women having PCOS, and I'm sure like many of them would also be doubting themselves like when they're gonna conceive, like
Yeah.
is it gonna take long time? And same as you said, you were also considering IVF. So it's IVF is not an easy route, first of all,
Yes,
as
I
far as I
know.
know. So I'm sure like a lot of people right now who are trying or who are planning to have a baby soon, if they have PCOS, then they should feel like good about it, not like they cannot do it. I'm sure like not everybody can do it same as you. It takes time.
Yeah.
But it's not like you can't.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
good.
And so we were extremely lucky that that was the case for us, and I feel like very. I have a lot of like compassion, empathy for those that are going through IVF, because I can just imagine like how difficult that must be. And so yeah, we were very lucky. And so for anyone listening that has PCOS, like just know it is possible to get pregnant, like naturally, because I was convinced I was going to have to do IVF, but yeah, it worked out. So it is still possible. And then
You were talking about how your hypertension and thyroid was affected because you had PCOS. Is that right?
No, I don't think it was to do with the PCOS. It was just with the pregnancy.
Okay.
And I think like also they monitor, like, they do like blood tests and monitor different things when you're pregnant. So these were things that they picked up. And then with the high blood pressure, like they, check your blood pressure every time you go in. And
Yeah.
mine was high. And so I had to, I had to monitor that, like at home as well. And so.
And you were working that time.
yeah, I was. But then closer to the, like, for my last trimester, I was actually on a leave from work because of those issues that I was facing. And also, like, like, for example, the blood pressure as well was like the stress from work and everything, especially working late and things like that, it made basically those symptoms worse, right? But it was a combination of things, and so I'm extremely lucky that I work for a company that had that option, right? Like that I was able to go on a leave. And also my doctor was very supportive, and
Yeah.
she wanted me to go on leave. And also my work was very supportive too. Like I have an amazing people manager, and everybody was extremely, understanding, right? Because
Yeah.
obviously when you're pregnant, like the health of you and the baby is like the most important, right?
Definitely, yeah. And support from your workplace and doctor is like, it means a lot.
Yeah, for sure. So I was very lucky in so many ways. And then also, sorry, we were talking about the gestational diabetes, and then I was
Yeah.
talking about the PCOS. So I was more at risk for the gestational diabetes because of that. And also my dad has diabetes. So if it runs in your family as well, then you could, you also, like, there's, different
Yeah.
risk factors, right?
Yeah.
And so the pregnancy basically wasn't that easy, but I know that there are people that even have even harder pregnancies. But yeah, so, and then I also had to be induced as well with the gestational diabetes because there is a risk like going full term. And then also my son was measuring very big. Like, his weight and everything. And I was worried, is it something to do with the gestational diabetes? Like I was worried, like,
Yeah.
am I doing something wrong? But when I met with one of the doctors, like a specialist, she was saying like, luckily, like he looked proportionate. And usually with the gestational diabetes, like either like the head or the stomach will be like bigger than like it, like out of proportion kind of. So she was saying like he looks big, but it looks like it's like more of a genetic
Yeah.
thing. And I know my siblings were all like over 9 pounds. And so like and I think a lot of my cousins as well. So it's, I think, a genetic thing. And so I was induced early because of that as well.
How early was that, if you don't mind sharing?
So I was induced like a day before 38 weeks. So basically 38 weeks, so 2 weeks before
And
my due
then
date.
how did the birth go? Like the birthing journey?
So it was actually, like, I would say pretty smooth overall. Like I was very lucky with the birth as well, just in terms of like not having like any kind of, I guess, issues arise. And one thing so before like finding out about being induced, my doctor was saying about potentially having a C-section because of his size, right? Because he was big. And so she was saying, oh, like, I'm going to refer you to a specialist, and I'm going to refer you to a specialist, and then like, but I think maybe you might have to have a C-section. And I remember that day, like I cried because I was like, I didn't think I was going to have a C-section. And, but because I had previously accepted that, when then I met with the specialist. The specialist said, no, you can actually try for natural. And so
What specialist was that exactly?
I don't even know the exact, I think it was just like a specialist for high risk pregnancies.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And I think high risk because I had the gestational diabetes plus the other hypertension and hypothyroidism. It was a combination, right?
Yeah.
So I met with her, and she said, no, you can try for natural. And so then when I was in labor, so with the induction, there's, I think, a couple different methods that they use. Yeah, so I went to the hospital on the Friday night, and then they put like this gel in your cervix, and I forget what it's called. And then you stay at the hospital for an hour so they can monitor your vitals, make sure, and the baby, right? Make sure everything's okay. And then they send you home overnight. But that night I did not sleep because I like was anxious, right? I'm like, tomorrow I'm gonna have a baby. Like it's kind of crazy. And so, and sorry, before that, I like I don't know, like I knew obviously I was going to have to give birth to my son, but it almost felt like it was like, like my brain couldn't like
Nothing prepares
accept.
you for that moment, right?
Yeah.
Until it happens.
Yeah,
Whether you
exactly.
get induced or you go into spontaneous labor, it's like nothing can prepare you. You just stay there, like you
Yeah.
can't be calm, of course. Like I've been there too,
Yeah.
and you're definitely not calm. It makes you anxious, but I'm sure like you can never be prepared enough
Yeah.
that you're going to have a baby tomorrow or this week.
Exactly. Like, and especially if it's your first, it's like you have nothing to
Yeah,
compare it to,
nothing
right?
to compare it to.
And so I went, so I went on the Friday night, and then we had to go back on the Saturday morning at 8 a.m. And I barely slept that night, like maybe a few hours, like 2 hours or something. And so when we got there, like, I think before we got there, I had like a little bit of like kind of cramping, sort of like, I guess, light contractions. But again, I didn't know like what I'm supposed to kind of expect, right? And so
Yeah.
we got there, and then they said, oh, you're already 3 or 4 centimeters dilated. And I remember we did like a birth course, and they said like you can get the epidural once you're like 3 or 4 centimeters. So when the nurse, like the labor and delivery nurse, came to bring me to the room, I said right away, like, can I get the epidural? Because I was like already at that point, I was already starting to feel like
Yeah.
more in pain. So then when we got there, like to that, because the first room was kind of like a triage room. So then I went to the next room, the delivery room, and I got the epidural pretty quickly. But then I felt like it did definitely help. Like I didn't like it definitely helped, but I did still feel a lot of things. And so I was saying to the doctor, like, is it normal that I feel this? Like, even like when they were checking how dilated I was, like it was like really painful. And I'm thinking like, is this normal? Like, should I be feeling it this much, And even after, so then the actual labor itself, which I would count from, let's say, the morning, right, 8 a.m., I gave birth at like 8:30 p.m. And so I gave birth at 8:30 p.m. And so like I would say like it was about 12 hours,
12
right?
hours.
And so and the pushing part was like an hour. And something that I didn't know until like I spoke to another mom, like I always thought like, you see it in like shows and movies, like you think like you're just pushing for that whole time, right?
Yeah.
But then it's like you actually only push while you have contractions.
Yeah.
Yeah, and sorry, one thing I forgot to mention was, while I was in labor, his heart rate was really high. My son's heart rate was really high at one point. Like when I got to the hospital in the morning, and they said, we're going to monitor, but if it doesn't go down, then we're going to have to bring you in for a C-section. And so then like they were monitoring, and it was kind of going, I guess, up and down a bit. And then they were like, the nurse came and told me, they're getting the room ready, like that I was going to go in for the C-section. But because my doctor had told me like a month prior that I might have to do a C-section, I had previously accepted the fact that I was going to have a C-section, right?
Yeah.
So I think like in that moment, I wasn't taken aback by it, or like I wasn't really emotional about it because I had previously accepted it. But then luckily my son's heart rate came down, and they said, okay, like, we'll just keep monitoring you. And so one thing like that, for other moms is like you definitely don't think you're going to have a C-section, right? So you don't really prepare yourself for the possibility. Like you think like, oh no, like it's not going to happen to me, right?
Right.
But, and, in my case, I didn't have the C-section, but because I accepted the possibility a month
True.
prior,
Yeah.
it didn't startle me in the moment. Like if they were going to bring me in, I was like, okay, like, you know what I mean? It was,
I get it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very important to prepare yourself for the thing that you're not expecting.
Exactly.
Because you never know that something unexpected can happen too. So if like somebody is prepared, just in case, and educate themselves about the other process too,
Yeah.
it might be easier to come in terms. Otherwise, like you said, they're just going to get startled, and there's like there's another like more stress that adds on in that situation.
Yeah,
So that's a
exactly.
very good thing. I think everybody should prepare for that.
Yeah.
Not prepare to go into that situation, but just to
Like
be
prepare.
aware, like
Yeah.
how it turns out to be, and if that's something that they need to do, how it's gonna look like. Also, like when you're having the C-section, and also the post recovery,
Yeah,
because
exactly.
nobody prepares. I just realized as you're speaking about it, nobody really prepares you about that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Until you get there, and until that happens.
Yeah, exactly.
But I'm glad that it all worked out in the best way possible for you. And then,
Yeah.
so his heart rate came to normal.
Yeah, like it came back down, so then they were just monitoring me, and then like until it was time to deliver. And yeah, and then afterwards, like I always thought too, with the like, right after the delivery, like obviously there was some pain and everything, and so that was to be expected. And one thing that I found funny, but like not funny, is the nurse came in and said like, how's your pain, right? And I'm thinking like I guess like, yeah, it hurts,
can I-
but is it
yeah.
like it seems normal, like it's like
Yeah.
like you don't have anything to compare it to, right?
Exactly.
And so but I don't know, I felt like after like maybe 3 weeks for me, I felt like a bit more normal, like not sorry, like physical, okay, not as a whole, but in terms of just strictly with the delivery, I felt more like not in pain kind of after the 3 week
3 weeks.
But I know it varies like per per person, and also
Yeah.
depending whether it's natural or C-section.
I think the post-birth recovery is like very different for every person, and I would say like it's not even like related to what kind of birth they had, like whether
Yeah.
it was a natural birth or it was medicated, unmedicated, C-section. Everybody has a different experience. I've seen.
Exactly.
I have also seen like moms who had a natural birth and they had like a very traumatic experience and not very smooth recovery.
Yeah.
And then on the other hand, there's a mom who just went into an emergency C-section and she recovered like pretty soon. So it's
Yeah.
like everybody's different. Everybody's like the body is different. The way they
Yeah.
react, the way the body reacts to the process. So it's like a very different experience, right?
Yeah, for sure. And like I've heard some people have like traumatic births, and it's like a lot for them to process after.
Yeah.
And it's like funny, but again, like not funny, but like it feels so surreal, like giving birth. Like I don't know, like it's like obviously I remember that, but it's like an experience you never forget. But
Yeah.
at the same time, it's like it almost feels like, I don't even know how to explain it, like an out of body experience, but not like it's hard to explain, because it's like it's just so like strange when you're in it. And also it's like, I don't know, just you think like, like let's say for example I'm a bit like shy, or like a bit of like a shy person, and then like you're kind of on full display for like
Oh,
everybody,
yeah.
for the doctors and
Yeah.
nurses, and but like for them this is their job, right? This is what they see
Exactly.
day in and day out, like they
Yeah.
they do not care.
They do not care. It's
Yeah.
like just us, we overthink, like a lot of
Exactly.
things. They would probably just forget the minute they step out of the room.
Yeah, exactly.
That's true. It's so this is something that only when you're in it, when you're experiencing it, that's when you know how it is.
Exactly.
You cannot explain it even after it's done. So
Exactly.
I gave birth and I cannot explain how it was. It was so good, and of course it's like all different kind of emotions that you feel in a span of couple of minutes, I would say.
Yeah.
But it's something that you cannot explain in words.
Yeah, no, that's so true. Yeah.
Okay, so then after the delivery, what was your how did you feel? How did your family feel? I'm sure you were at relief after having him naturally, because that was also like making you anxious. So how was like everybody feeling?
Well, everybody obviously was very happy. Like he was the first grandchild for my in-laws, and my second grandchild for my mom,
Yeah.
or for my parents. And so I everybody was obviously very happy, like the new member of the family, and like having a baby, like it's so nice, right? Like just having a baby around is a very like a,
For everybody else is like the most pleasant experience, right?
exactly.
But it's like how the mom feels. So I
Exactly.
shouldn't maybe I should ask you how you felt, because for everybody else it's like all celebrations, and they are not going through any kind of pain or any like the birth experience itself. So
Yeah.
how did you feel like on the day that he came, and how many days were you in the hospital?
So after I like gave birth, just 24 hours.
24 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, like in the hospital, I remember I cried a few times because, and not even when he was born. Like, I feel like when he was born, it was like I was really tired, obviously, right?
Yeah.
Like being in labor, I barely slept the
12
night before.
hours.
Yeah. I didn't sleep the night before, and obviously I had just given birth, so I was very tired, and I just felt like drained, right? And then, anyways, and then also, I was trying to breastfeed, like, so when he was first born, you do skin to skin,
Yeah.
and I was trying to breastfeed as well, but like that was like an ongoing journey, right? That was a challenge for me, which I'll explain a bit more about. But in the hospital, it was fine. Like our, parents came to meet him, and we were only there 24 hours. It just felt like, I don't know, like kind of like a whirlwind, right?
Yes.
Like, but yeah, so I cried a few times because I remember like the lactation consultant came in, and I was struggling with the breastfeeding, like even just from that first day, which obviously, like, I mean, you can't expect to be like a pro right away.
Exactly, yeah.
And so like, oh, and sorry, I forgot to mention, with the gestational diabetes, they check the baby's blood sugar when he's born.
Right.
And so when he was born, one of the pediatric nurses had checked his blood sugar, and they said it was too low. So then a doctor came in, the pediatric doctor, and said, oh, we're gonna have to take him to the NICU. And I was like really like shocked, like, oh my gosh, like they're gonna take him away, like, he was literally just born a few seconds ago.
Yeah.
And then one of the labor and delivery nurses, she was like, let me check his sugar again. So she checked it, because she was like, he doesn't look like a baby with low blood sugar. Like, I don't know, I guess she can tell. And so she checked it, and she said, and I think it was just like 1 or 2 above or below like the threshold of what it should be. And so then they said, okay, no, like we don't have to bring him, but we're just gonna check his blood sugar every like few hours.
Yeah.
And what happened was they had to give him, there was like this pink liquid or gel or something, but I can't remember, like I don't know what it was called. And then they gave him formula, like they had to feed him right away. And so he got used to the formula like really fast, because literally like from a few minutes after he was born,
Yeah, the
they
first
gave
thing that
him-
he was given was formula.
Yeah, and so that was, I think that also made the whole breastfeeding thing a challenge, because I didn't just like, keep trying to like for him to latch, or for him to like, like the formula was introduced basically right away.
Yeah.
So
And I think like I am not like aware of a lot of moms who had gestational diabetes, like except for the mom who we had in the earlier episode, Kayla. She also had the same experience. But I think it's like very common that they have to feed formula just to regulate, the sugar levels. And maybe they don't want to spend that much of time in trying, and that's why they might have done that too.
yeah. And actually like gestational diabetes is, I feel like once I had it and was talking to people about it, it seemed like it was not like common, but somewhat common. Like even like people I work with, there were 3 women on my team alone that had it. And so like, yeah, it actually is something that a lot of moms experience. And yeah, I'm not sure, like you mentioned with the formula, how often, they give it to the babies right away.
And then how was, so if we talk about your breastfeeding journey, I know that you said it was very challenging.
Yeah.
But how would you like explain what exactly happened when, so you were in the hospital for 24 hours and you said that they were trying to feed him formula during that time. So the next thing is that you come home with the baby, and that's a whole lot of different experience. I can tell from my experience too, because you're coming home with the baby and you don't really know what to do.
Yeah.
Right? Everything is new. It's like very first experience as a first time mom. It's like a bit more challenging, I would say. And you see a lot of things happening, and you don't have those nurses coming and checking, oh, how's the baby, how's the mama. It's not like that.
Yeah.
So it's very, very different all in all. And how did the first day when you came home with the baby look like?
So when I came home, I was lucky that I had support from obviously from my husband, but also even my mother-in-law. My mom as well, but she lives further from me, and also she's much older, and she doesn't drive. So anyways, there were a few factors like why my mom couldn't come as often.
Yeah.
But so I was lucky that I had that support. And so with the breastfeeding, I did continue to try and latch. And before, going through a breastfeeding journey myself, I always thought of breastfeeding as like a very simple like concept, like, okay, yeah, you just breastfeed and that's it, right? Like,
Yeah.
I never realized how many challenges you could face. And like I read about them online, like, different things that people go through. And so what happened was, I continued to try, and he did breastfeed a bit. Like, I would do like skin to skin a little bit, and also, try and have him latch. And, but if he was, I felt like worried he wasn't getting enough or he wasn't latching. And for some reason, like, he would latch better on like one breast than the other. And so, I also tried pumping as well, but I really did not like it, which I feel like is a pretty common thing I've heard, that people don't enjoy pumping, because it's like, it's very time consuming, but also like, having to wash the pump parts all the time.
That's such a pain.
Yeah.
Oh my God. When you said that, I just remember. So for me, I did not feel any bad about pumping, and I felt like it was a bit less painful.
Oh, really?
To be honest, yeah, that's what, from my own experience, I thought like pumping is not that hard. The harder part is the washing parts,
Yeah.
right? And I was not doing it honestly, because in the first 2 weeks, the baby is on you pretty much 24/7.
Yeah.
Whether they are feeding, even if they are not latched on you, they just want to be with you, and that skin to skin that they need and we need as well too.
Yeah.
So it was like baby was with me too much, and nobody was expecting me to just jump out and do something. So my partner has been taking care of all those additional jobs. So he was like washing too many times, and I was like okay, pumping is fine. I get it, like I want to pump too, but then it's too much of work you have to do. Like every now and then he's just going, washing it, washing the bottle, then sterilizing it, and then again you use it. It's like a loop.
Yeah.
You just keep washing, drying, sterilizing.
Exactly.
And it was kind of easy, but then I eventually, like, I did not completely stop. I would do it like some part of the day when I think it's necessary.
Yeah.
But I did not do it like constantly. It just got easier for him, that he doesn't have to wash it again and again.
Yeah.
And also I felt like it is very effortless to just breastfeed. It's like you don't need anything else, just you and the baby.
Yeah.
Nothing else needed. So then I felt like, yeah, that's like easy. And then when we talk about pumping, we are gonna circle back to what you were saying, but there's something that I have personally seen on the internet so much, even before I delivered. There's these moms,
Oversuppliers.
I'm led, like, be it oversuppliers or even if they are not, they show that pumping and then having a big stash in their deep freezers. And then I was kind of convinced that this is how it's supposed to be. I was like, okay, yes, you have to pump and you need to have a big stash, and that's like something you have to do. And I see that so many moms would get stressed because of that, because not everybody has same supply. And it's more of like supply and demand goes hand in hand. So it doesn't have to be a big stash sitting in your deep freezer. All you need is whatever your baby needs in the moment. And I do understand that you look at people like they are just emptying the breast pump, and there's like so much of ounce they're emptying at once, and then you try to compare yourself.
Exactly.
Luckily I did not, but I know a fellow mom who was like so triggered about that, and she said, look at this mom, she's emptying her pump like it's like a full small bottle, 4-6 ounce, like at once.
Yeah.
And then why am I not doing that? I'm not able to do that. And I said, listen, you are different. Not every mom is same. Not every mom's journey is same.
Yeah.
Breastfeeding doesn't have to be same either.
Yeah.
You should not compare yourself with a mom on social media who's like emptying pumps after pumps. Don't do that. So
know.
then I had a different ideology about this, and I thought, okay, all I need is like a week's supply, so that just in case if I have to take any antibiotics, or if for any reason I'm unable to feed, then I have a backup.
Okay,
Because I've been exclusively breastfeeding, and I don't want to risk, if I'm not available for any reason, there should be something.
Yeah.
But then I just want to, as we talk about this, I want to tell all the listeners that please don't compare yourself with moms who are whether oversupplier or not, but you don't have to pump and fill your deep freezer like anything. If
Yeah.
you're feeding, that's enough. I mean, just don't compare your supply with another mom's supply.
Yeah, no, that's...
Whatever we have, whatever our baby needs, that's what we're gonna have. And just don't try to benchmark other moms.
Exactly. And I think that that's so true with comparing what you see on social media. And I felt the exact same way, because I remember the first couple times I pumped, I felt like, I got a decent amount, nothing crazy. But then after that, when I was pumping, I would get so little, sometimes not even an ounce. And I was feeling so discouraged. And I remember one time I pumped I don't know, 1 ounce maybe, and I actually knocked it over. It was on the counter. I had put it down for a second. I knocked it over, and this saying don't cry over spilt milk, right? I literally cried, and I was just
but how can you not?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm so much effort for 1 ounce.
Definitely.
And it fell on the floor, so I can't use it. So cleaning that up, I was so upset. And I was just that wasn't the last time I pumped, but that was one of the last times, because I felt so discouraged by that. And I'm just and I think as moms, we're so hard on ourselves, right? No matter what you do, it's almost it's, you can never do the right thing, right? I feel I really thought I was going to breastfeed, and I wasn't able to because, he got used to the formula and having trouble with the latching. And I just felt there were too many things. And I just I kept telling myself I should have tried harder with the breastfeeding, right? And I'm and thinking back in hindsight, I'm oh, why didn't I get a lactation consultant to come and help me, right? But when it's all new and you're very emotional, and you think oh no, I'm just gonna try, I can try to do it myself, kind of thing. But then I did keep trying, and with both the pumping and the breastfeeding, and I would say, I don't know, for 2-3 months, maybe 2 months, and it just I just kind of kept going more towards the formula, because that's what he was used to. But I had a very hard time accepting it. I felt there was a lot of shame around it with the formula. And most of the people around me, didn't make me feel any kind of, I didn't feel judged by them with the formula. But there were a couple of instances where I did feel judgment. And I'm sometimes it's you don't know if it's in your head or am I imagining it. But I remember one person saw I was mixing the formula, shaking the bottle, and they did a look, kind of and I just felt they were judging, because I know that person breastfed their child. And I was thinking you shouldn't judge, because you don't know if maybe you had a very easy experience with breastfeeding. And you don't know, my experience or why I, decided to go with the formula. And, they say fed is best, right?
Fed is best. Absolutely. I was just going to say that.
Yeah.
And this is what my midwife told me when I was overthinking that, is it okay to pump and feed? Am I doing something wrong? And she was like, it's end of the day, it's breast milk.
Yeah.
So fed is best. So like you're saying, there's so much of judgment around this, and I feel so sad that nobody should judge anybody.
Yeah.
Whatever works for the mom and the kid is the best thing, and that's what they're doing.
Exactly.
I mean, I'm pretty sure no mom would do something that is not good for their baby. And there's a lot of shame and guilt around formula, but it shouldn't be, and I hope that it changes over time. I really hope so, because that also kind of adds up to a mom having anxiety and stress because
Yeah.
of the judgment around all these things. So 100% fed is the best. As long as your baby is fed and he's digesting and adjusting well to the formula, gaining weight,
yeah.
that's what you want. The first thing that in your checkups they're going to check is the baby's gaining weight, baby's healthy.
Yeah.
That's it.
Exactly. And so, there's so many different reasons why a mom could decide to breastfeed or
Yeah.
use formula, or if they're not able to breastfeed for whatever reason. And that's, that's the decision for the mom, right? And I think that a lot of the shame and judgment we get from, society and the pressure we put on ourselves as
Yeah.
moms. And so I think that was a really big challenge for me, dealing with that. But it's more like the pressure I put on myself, right? And also, and when I mentioned judgment, I remember a complete stranger. I was at a store once and I was sitting with my son, and he was maybe 2 months, and she saw, no, I didn't even have a bottle out. She didn't see the bottle, but she asked me oh, how old is he? And then she goes, are you breastfeeding? And I said, oh no, I'm trying to, but it's he's mostly on formula. And she was telling me this complete stranger saying oh, you should massage your breast in the shower with hot water, and you should do this and that, giving me advice. And I was just thinking you don't know the reason why I'm not, right? What if it's something a health related reason,
Definitely.
right?
Yeah.
It's not something that people should kind of force their ideas on other people.
Yeah.
So that was definitely a challenge for me.
I mean, a stranger coming up to you and asking what
Yeah.
method you're using, that would be. I can't even imagine how you felt in that situation, because listen, you don't even know me. You
Yeah.
don't know what kind of birth I had, or what kind of challenges I might be having.
Yeah.
Maybe it's, or even it can be somebody's choice too.
Yeah.
I would say it doesn't have to be necessarily a mom having challenges in breastfeeding. There could be a mom who's who has to return to her work, or
Yeah.
or they have a big business to take for any reason.
Yeah.
If a mom chooses not to breastfeed and formula feed, it's none of anybody's business,
Exactly.
to be honest. Just
Exactly.
let the mom do whatever she's doing. And honestly, after the childbirth, there's so many things that's going on. It's a complete 360-degree switch
Yeah.
for the new parents, especially for the mom. So, already so much going on, and the last thing that you want to do is add some shame or guilt to a mom, giving them additional stress that you don't really have to,
Yeah.
by the mean stuff that people say. So
And the thing with mom guilt, right? It's we're already have so many things going on in our head, and thinking oh, I could have done this better, I could have done that better, so many different things. So it's we don't need that additional pressure from other people, society, whatever.
Definitely.
But it's just, unfortunately, that's part of it, comes with a package, right? And
Yeah.
you just have to have, I guess, a thick skin. But I'm a very sensitive person, so I even I've joined some Facebook mom groups, right? And these are essentially strangers, right?
Strangers.
And sometimes I'm not even on whatever the post is about, but I'll see what people are commenting, and then I'll get affected by somebody's comment, even though it's not directed to me, but it's maybe
you
something.
kind of try to relate yourself in
Yes,
that.
exactly.
And Dennis, I would say it's not even about being sensitive. People are sensitive, right? I'm sensitive too, but it's that phase is so vulnerable that even if a
Yes.
person is not sensitive, they become sensitive to everything said to them, right?
Exactly.
The way we react to stuff and the way we, look at things happening around us, it's like totally different.
Yeah.
We wouldn't, mind those minor things if we were not in this kind of situation. It's like all the, hormones acting up and
Exactly.
different sort of things happening, that you become sensitive to literally everything.
It's so true. And I remember like it was a few days after I gave birth, and I remember like crying about something, and like I was just sitting on the bed crying, and then like my husband like came to, like comfort me, and then I was thinking like in that moment I'm thinking like, oh, I'm like, is this like postpartum like depression? Like, and I know there's like the baby blues, which is
Yeah.
common, and then but then there's obviously a difference between that and postpartum depression. And that's something that I did struggle with as well, with the postpartum depression, because at first I was like, you know what, I feel pretty good. Like, I did have a couple times, like, obviously you cry, like things make you emotional, and there's a huge change in hormones. It's like, this is a huge, adjustment for you. And then, it was just obviously a huge change. And then I don't know, a few weeks after started to get, not used to it, but kind
How
of.
did you figure out it was not baby blues and it was PPD?
I would say I was really struggling with motivation. Like, and I would say this would be around, maybe my son was about 6 months. And I was talking about therapy before, and like for a few months after I gave birth, I didn't see my therapist regularly, because it was hard to find time because my son would, be awake at different times. And then once he started to get more of a schedule, I, got back into therapy more. But basically, I was really struggling with motivation, and like I had basically like no desire to do anything. And I would take care of my son, right? Like, change him, feed him, like, meet his needs. But besides that, anything else was like such a huge like hurdle, or such a huge like, I can't think of the word, but just like a challenge, such a huge challenge, right? Like making dinner, like, any chores, like even leaving the house, like, because you get kind of stuck in this thing, right? Like, and especially like if it's the weather wasn't good or whatever, and so like I've been inside for like 4 or 5 days in a row, I haven't gone out. That also starts to affect you, right, mentally.
Definitely.
And then I'm just like, I started to almost get into like a rut. Like, it was just, I didn't have motivation. I didn't have really like a routine and stuff. And all these things like were just like combined. It was like just not good for me mentally. And I could tell that, I did have therapy, and I kind of struggled with like the term like postpartum depression, because I was like, putting like a label on it. Like, it's like, oh, it's like just because I gave birth and like I'm feeling depressed after I gave birth, then it's called postpartum depression. But like, I'm like, it doesn't matter what it's called, right? Like, it's just like, what can I do to feel better, right? And so I, spoke to a therapist regularly, and especially around just like the challenges with becoming a mom, right? Like, it's such a huge change in your like identity, right?
Yeah.
And I was thinking my life like before
You
pre-pregnancy.
grieve that life, kind of.
Exactly. And so I worked with a therapist about like the whole thing with becoming a mom, any challenges I faced. And like, feelings like the mom guilt, like whenever those feelings come up, stuff like that. And then I decided actually to go on medication for the postpartum, and that's something that I haven't like shared broadly, but I'm sharing it because I just want like other moms to know that if you need it, it's okay.
Yeah.
And like what my therapist was saying as well, like with like if it was a physical injury, right? Like if you broke your arm, would you say, oh, I don't want to put a cast on, right? So why is it with mental health that we're so, like, I don't know, there's still like a lot of stigma.
Stigma, yeah.
And I think that even though we've come a long way, like, there's been a lot of work in the mental health space and just like, with it being more talked about, which obviously that's, a great thing, but there's still a stigma around it. And anyways, I did start medication. The first one was like, I didn't really feel like it did anything. Like I felt the same. And then I tried a different one, and then I started to feel better. And then also with the going back to work, which was about a month ago, I think like that as well helped with the, like me having this routine, right? And obviously I miss my son when he's at daycare. But like people were saying, like, it's nice to have that part of you back, which I mentioned before. And also you kind of appreciate the time you have with your child more as well, right? Because you're like, oh, I only have these few hours each day. And then like on the weekends, like, so I try to do things with him on the weekends, right? And so that way, we're making memories and, like I spend more quality time with him. Whereas before, like I felt like we weren't really doing anything, like unless I had plans to meet up with like another mom friend.
Yeah. Were you meeting mom friends at that time?
Yeah, so I was lucky. I have 2 like mom friends that I work with, both of them.
Okay.
And
I mean, any support group that you joined and you connected with more moms?
So like I just joined those like Facebook groups, but I never like met up with anybody.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I didn't really.
And then,
join any.
when the PPD, like, yeah, there's a lot of stigma around it. But one thing that I've realized by listening to a lot of other people and experts talking, it's nothing like, nobody's fault here.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
It's like, it's a chemical imbalance and you cannot control it.
Yeah.
It's gonna happen, and I believe it happens with every single mom. Just the intensity would be different.
Yeah.
Right? For some people it's not lasting that long, and some people lasts very long. And just like yourself, somebody might need like help in terms of medicine too.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that you're openly sharing this, because people should normalize, seeking help.
Yeah.
And then they should figure out to what extent they need help.
Exactly.
Like, not just if just speaking to a therapist is not working for someone, maybe they should consider taking a medicine,
Medication,
which,
yeah.
They should not like push back on it. And
Exactly.
I have heard from some moms that, they were like, no, I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
This is like, medicine, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
But, you have to do what will make you feel better, because end of the day, if we feel better,
Yeah.
and if we are taking care of ourselves, we can take care of our baby in a much, much
Exactly.
better way.
Exactly.
So
And
it's
like,
really good that you're, sharing your experience of, taking therapy and then also taking the medicine that you had to.
Thank you so much. Yeah, no, it's it is something that, because like I mentioned with the stigma, like it's something that, I still feel nervous to share, but I just want other moms, like any listeners,
Yeah.
to know that it's okay if you need it, right? And I think that being vulnerable and like sharing real experiences is really important, because I mean, unless you know somebody close to you that has had a similar experience, then like where else are you gonna kind of hear relatable stories, right? And
Not necessarily somebody close to you will come and open
And
up to
tell
you.
you, exactly.
Because the stigma is with everybody, right? Not
Yeah.
a person who's close to you might not even want to share with you, feeling like, it's something that, oh, I don't want to tell. Like, oh my God, how can I tell this to, a person who I know, that this is how I've been feeling?
Yeah,
And then
exactly.
I'm so glad that, we are talking openly about this, because the purpose of this podcast is to be vulnerable and to share, real and honest stories and journeys that moms have during their pregnancy and postpartum.
Yeah.
Because there are so many things that you don't find on the internet. And if a mom is sharing their journey, what all they have experienced in their pregnancy, postpartum, and motherhood, you never know how many moms are listening and they could resonate with your journey, or at least if not resonate, they could like expect something like that. So that if they are just coming across like content which is like all about romanticizing childbirth and romanticizing postpartum and pregnancy. So you don't feel like alone, like am I the only one feeling this way? Like no, there are moms who feel the same stuff too, and they go through this exact same things. It's
Yeah.
like a season,
Yeah,
and it could be
exactly.
different for everyone, but then nobody has to feel like why just me, is it just me?
Yeah.
So that's like, it's like so good that we are having this conversation, and I really feel glad, and I really want to thank you one more time to be like so open and sharing your most vulnerable self. And then I don't want to forget, this is like something that is very important, and we were planning on talking about, which was the baby bonding
Okay.
and the challenges that you faced, that you were not able to bond with baby, and how did that happen, and when did you first figure out that I'm not able to feel that bond? What did it look like to you?
So for me, and sorry, I just wanted to mention what you said about season, right? So just with the medication, I just wanted to say, like, it's okay to, like, one thing that my therapist said, but also that I remind myself, like, going on medication, it doesn't have to be a forever thing, right? It's just to get through this season, right?
Right,
And
yeah.
so for me, it's like, I'm not, who knows how long I'm going to be on the medication, but if I'm feeling better, then that's what the main thing is. And yeah, if I feel better, and that saying, you can't pour from an empty cup. I don't know if I already
Yeah.
mentioned that,
Oh,
right?
yes,
So like
definitely.
I
You
need
cannot.
to take care of myself, and then it's better for my son as well, right?
Yeah.
But in terms of the bonding, so in like movies and stuff, and also when you hear people like that have given birth, like even people like acquaintances and stuff, like everybody's always talking about like this, like, oh my god, my heart exploded, and like all these things, right? Like it's like, I don't know, like fireworks went
Rainbows,
off.
fire,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so when my son was born, like, of course, like I felt like I like bonded with him, like while I was pregnant, like I had that special, like, it's crazy to have like a human life growing in you and feeling the kicks. Like I loved that. And so when he was first born, like, yeah, I was really tired, obviously, and I was kind of, I don't know the word I'm thinking of there, but anyways, so when he was first born, I remember saying hi baby, and like and then did skin to skin with him and everything, and like I was like, okay, like I was like, he's beautiful and I love him, right? Like I'm like, I know I love him.
Yeah.
But I didn't feel that thing that people talk about where it's like, oh my god, my heart exploded and like my life is forever changed. Like it didn't feel like that at that moment. So then, like, even for a few days after as well, I didn't feel that huge rush. And so but I did, like, the bond grew over time. And with the whole struggle with the bonding, I would say that I didn't feel so much like shame around that, with like I did with the the not being able to breastfeed.
Yeah.
But I felt like I was reading on Reddit, and people were saying, like, that they didn't feel a bond right away either, that it grew over time. And it was a very common thing to see that.
Yeah.
But I was like, the only thing I've ever heard was the whole, your heart explodes and this and that, and that, what you see in movies and TV, like that kind of thing, right? And so I was thinking, like, is this normal? And so I was reading, other people's experiences. And whenever, like, I asked other parents, right, like, what did they feel? Like, friends of ours, right?
Yeah.
I asked, and then, like, I remember one person said that they, did feel that. Like, they did feel that rush of, like, this love and emotion and everything. And also, sorry, like, I just want to point out, obviously, I loved my son. It was
Yeah.
just, like, that whole, like, rush of emotion, or that whole, like, the bond, like, I don't know, it just, for me, it grew over time, and it honestly feels like it keeps getting more and more, like, as he gets older, because it's like, I don't know, like, I definitely, like, I would say, I don't know, after the first month, I definitely knew I felt this bond with him, right?
And it's with the milestones too. When you
Yes.
so initial few days, the baby is pretty much sleeping like
Yeah.
all the time. You don't really see how they are reacting to you. They cannot even have that kind of clarity. They cannot see you that much. So it's like it grows over time, and I think it's more to do with the milestones too.
Yeah.
And as you see, like babies like giving a little smirk in the sleep, or they are giggling.
Yeah.
Those things also, I think, contribute towards having like a big um, emotion of all the love and
Yeah, exactly.
care.
Exactly. And like with the milestones, like you said, like every time, they learn something new, like you're so proud, right? And it's like you just feel like so happy, like so proud. Like my son just started walking, like he was trying to take steps, like was taking 1 or 2 steps for like I would say 2 months, but now he's like officially walking, like walking around and everything. And it's like I'm so proud of him, right? And it's like I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, like it's just crazy, like how did he go from like a baby, like, and now like I still consider him a baby,
Yeah.
but he's like such a big boy, obviously, compared to when he was like a newborn. And it's just like, yeah, that bond and that like special connection, definitely I feel like continues to grow, right? And I just also want other moms to know that like it's okay if you don't feel it right away, like at the time of birth or even the few days that first, like the first few days after, right, postpartum. But yeah, it definitely
I mean, they should definitely not try to, compare themselves with something happening in the movie, like you said.
Yeah.
I mean, I can totally now recall, like, I've also seen, like, how people say, like, oh, that's the best thing that happened. And definitely that's what we feel too.
yeah.
I'm sure every mom is feeling that way. It's like a beautiful experience, and you feel very, very grateful. You are so much of gratitude, and you're so
Yeah.
happy that okay, everything went well, and I delivered the baby. Look at the baby; he's so beautiful. And I remember, like, I just kept on telling my husband, like, we created this
I
baby.
know, I
Look, it's
still
half
say
of
that.
you, half of me. But yeah, definitely, like, there's so much of romanticizing going on. And again, I would again say that yeah, it's good to have all those things out there on different platforms, but then it's not necessary that every mom is going to feel the same way. It's
Exactly.
not going to be the same. Every mom's journey is different, and even I would say every pregnancy journey is different. Like, we had our first baby, that was a different experience. Now we know a lot of things that we have already done and we have gone through, so maybe the second one is not going to be the same. Who knows, we will not even experience the stuff that we did.
Yeah.
So it's always different. And in terms of the baby bonding, it's like what you experienced. I'm sure, like, there's a lot of moms who would have experienced that, and it's just like the period of time that they feel disconnected is different. I have known somebody who felt like that for about 2 months.
Oh, okay.
And I can't imagine how hard it must have been, because then also, it's kind of connected with breastfeeding
As
too.
well,
And,
yeah.
because you're also so anxious about a whole lot of different stuff, and then again, not feeling that bonding. So it affects, like, your overall postpartum journey too.
Exactly. Yeah. And like I was, again, like thinking like with this self-doubt or like shame or judgment, like what's wrong with me? Like, why didn't I feel like this huge rush and everything, right? And so I think that it is it is common though to not feel it right away. And like, yeah, some of our friends told us that they did feel it right away, but others said no, it grows over time, which is in my case, that's how it felt, right? That it
Yeah.
grows over time. And so
How long was it that you were not feeling that kind of connection?
I don't know, I would say about a month approximately, but like, yeah, there's not like a clear, like, I guess time of when, like, I just knew, like, as I was interacting with him and like having that connection. And yes, I did, try to breastfeed, and like, so he did breastfeed a little bit. And so I had that connection, and with the skin to skin, which they say is like really helpful. And so, yeah, I think just slowly it grew over time, and now I feel like, well, this happened a long time ago, but I'm like obsessed with him, like it's like he's just like our whole world and everything. And it's like now I feel like it's like, and sorry, not now, but like, months ago, like a year ago, I started to understand like the way when people say that, like, oh, my heart exploded, this and that, right? Like, so I do have those feelings, but they just didn't come right away, right? It took some time. But yeah, I think that it's just, I feel like that's important to share as well with the bonding,
Definitely.
because for me, like, I was just thinking, like, what's wrong with me? Like, why don't I feel this, like, motherly connection, like, right away? Like, this is my baby and stuff. And obviously, again, I loved him, but I
Yeah.
just didn't feel, like, super connected. I don't know. It's, like, it's hard to explain, but, when you're in it, you kind of understand, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's another thing that is important to be honest about, because like it helps other moms.
Definitely.
Yeah, like
I am sure it will
whichever.
help so many moms. Because then again, if they just come across like stuff which is like rainbows, fireworks,
Yeah.
and then if they are not feeling the same way, it's even more stressful, because then we think like, oh, I'm the only person who's not feeling those things. Why is it happening to me alone?
Yeah.
And then when they look around, like, no, that's how it is. And childbirth is like really big deal. It's like nobody should take it lightly, and it brings like different sets of emotions that you cannot expect. So
Yeah,
definitely
exactly.
it's going to benefit a lot of moms. And I hope that nobody is being so harsh on them that I'm not feeling this way, why am I feeling that way. And it's like also related to how moms try to kind of relate their journeys with the other moms on social media. One thing that I want to say is that a person who's like sharing their journey, they are sharing what they want to share.
Exactly.
It's not always gonna be like something you're looking for, right?
We always compare with social media, and then it's like, that for yourself, right? That you only post like, happy things and this and that.
Yeah.
Like, you don't post your problems, right? And it's like, I saw this thing saying like, what's posted on social media is 0.03% of somebody's life. So why do we
Exactly.
compare 100% of our life to
Yeah.
0.03% of somebody else's, right? Like, that is, we are, comparing ourselves, and it's like, you don't see the full picture. Like you said, like people share what they want to share, right?
Yeah.
That was just one other thing I wanted to mention.
So that's why we are gonna always have like real and honest mom conversations, talking about what exactly motherhood looks like and feels like for every different mom, because it's never gonna be the same.
Yeah.
It's definitely gonna be different for every person. And so I am so grateful to you,
Thank
Dennis,
you.
for being so open and sharing your story openly with our listeners. I know that we still have a lot to discuss, and for the listeners, I want them to come back, because we will have another episode where we will be talking about identity crisis, and also we'll be talking about the transition when your baby went to daycare. How did that feel, and how did that help with regards to the development of your kid? So there's a lot more to share, and it's definitely, we cannot just squeeze everything in this one episode. So thank you so much for being here with us today, and it was very valuable insights and your experience and challenges that you shared. Let's come back and talk about more stuff that we have to.
For sure. And thank you so much again for having me, and I look forward to our next chat.
Amazing.